Welcome to the Influence and Impact Summit presented by Platform University.
Know that your story matters and that you have a message that the world needs to hear.
You can get your message to the end user now so much easier.
It can't just be about you. Influence is about others.
And again, it all goes down to serving your audience and making a true, real connection with them.
Hi, I'm Michael Hyatt. Welcome to the Influence and Impact Summit presented by Platform University. I'm here this morning with my good friend, or whatever time you're watching this, Glennon Doyle Melton. Glennon is a mega blogger, and it's in large part because she has such a raw, unfiltered storytelling ability that's just so compelling. And that's why she gets millions of viewers to her blog every month. She's also a New York Times best-selling author, the author of Carry On Warrior, also the founder of a nonprofit organization called Together Rising, which has raised well over $1 million to help women and children who are in crisis. And I've brought her on today to talk specifically about her insights into increasing your influence and impact. So welcome to the summit, Glennon. Great to have you.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
For people that don't know you yet, could you just tell us a little bit about what you do and why you're excited about what you do?
Yeah, well, what I do, let's see. Well, I am a recovering everything and a beloved child of God. I try to remember that all day. And I am a mama and a wife and a writer and a speaker and an artist and an activist. And so what I do every day is I wake up at the crack of dawn at 5 a.m. because if a mother's going to get anything done, she has to lose sleep for it. And I sit in the dark and I write what I call my truthiest truths, like the stuff that I can't talk about in real life because for some reason it feels so much safer to say important things in writing than it does in conversation. And then and I know everything. In the morning before anyone wakes up in the world, I know everything. I am so brilliant. And then the sun rises and people wake up and I forget everything all day. So that's my time to write in the morning. And so I don't know, writing is how I've healed myself, how I continue to heal myself, how I figure out what I think, and how I found my tribe, how I found my people through monastery.
Is that your most favorite thing of all the things you do, is that writing time?
Well, that's what I would keep doing even if, I feel like I did that before I had any audience, and I would do that after this was all over. That's kind of my touch tree. That's how I stay sober, stay grounded, when I am most myself. So yeah, that's my favorite part. My other favorite part is just getting to be a voice for people who don't have a voice right now. Like I'm a translator for people with mental illness. I call them mental differences, but mental illness is fine too. And you know, and the addicts and the creatives and the woo-woos and all those people are my people. So that's one of my favorite things, that I've kind of gotten out of the whale's belly for long enough to kind of be a translator for people who are still in the whale's belly.
I love the way you describe that. Well, you didn't start off as a best-selling author or popular public speaker or have all this traffic on your blog. How did it all begin? I've heard your story, but I want you to share it with the people listening because it's extraordinary.
Yeah, so Michael, I found out I was pregnant 13 years ago on Mother's Day, and it was a terrifying moment for me because I'd been lost to food addiction and alcohol addiction for decades, and had just burned every bridge in my life like you do. When you're an addict. So I don't know, something about that pregnancy test in that moment just felt like an invitation to come back to life for me. So I got sober. But the problem with getting sober when you're 25, when you've been an addict since you were 10, is that I had no idea how to be a grown-up. I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know what grown-ups did. So I just kind of decided I'm going to look around at other grown-ups and copy them. Just do like the next grown-up thing, one right thing at a time. So I got married, and I had 2 more babies, and I started going to church, and I got a library card, which was like the most grown-up thing, I felt like.
That's so grown-up. That's like the ultimate.
Terrifying. But the church and the library are really good places for people like me because they have to take you, no background checks. So I recommend starting there. But anyway, Michael, what happened was, what I learned about, the first grown-up thing I learned is that relationships are all that matters, right? We're all like little scattered pieces of a puzzle down here, and we're just like yearning for connection. And so for me, what mattered was all my relationships, my relationship with God, which is my faith, my relationship with myself, which is my sobriety, my relationship with my husband, marriage, and my relationship with my kids. I couldn't even deal with friendship back then. That was too much. So those were all the relationships I could handle. And what I learned about these relationships is that they are so beautiful, but they are brutal, so hard. And I couldn't find a place to tell the truth about those things because it seemed like everybody wanted to just talk about the shiny parts of relationships, like if you admitted they were hard, that would be an admission of failure. When actually, to me, I find that sometimes relationships are hardest for the people who are doing them right? Because it takes all of you. And so anyway, I just became, I couldn't find a single place where I could talk about parenthood without acting like it was the most constantly magical, perfect, shiny thing. Or, you know, we're all children of Disney in my generation, so we have to pretend like marriage is the finish line, right? Like you get there and you're just magically, happily ever after. You just like brush your long, pretty hair and you're done. So it was terrifying for me to figure out that I was married to a good man and I was still lonely. You know, and faith, you know, I went to church thinking that would be the place I could tell the truth. And now I found one where I can, but back then it felt like if you were a Christian or a person of any faith, you had to pretend like, you know, God had cured you of your messy humanness, you know, like you no longer had any anger or doubt or fear or, you know, mess, right, which isn't my experience at all. I love God fiercely and God loves me wildly and I am still all jacked up, like So what I found was that these institutions, these relationships that I wanted so bad were actually becoming threats to my integrity and my sobriety because my integrity and my sobriety are based completely on my ability to be a truth teller, just to be naked and unashamed and say this is how God made me and I don't think it's a mistake. So long story short, I thought, you know what, if I can't tell the truth in the real world, maybe I can do it in my writing. So that's what I started to do. I got up every morning at 5 a.m. like I still do now, and I wrote my truthiest truths, the stuff I couldn't say in real life. And I made a couple of rules for myself. One was that I was going to create this blog, Monastery, and that I was going to write it with just raw, real, as honest as I could be, like shameless nothing I'd ever heard of, like a girl who actually believes she's forgiven. And that I was going to treat every single person who came to Monastery, whether they liked me or not, with utter respect and kindness, like someone who actually believes everyone else is forgiven too. And Michael, I don't know, it just turned into this amazing, like there were just all of these people who wanted to be truth tellers and hope spreaders too, and they came and they kept coming, and we talked about the beautiful parts of life, but we also talked about the brutal, and I feel like together we've just figured out that you can either be perfect and admired or you can be real and loved, but you have to decide, you know? And so it's the place where I get to be real and loved. Monastery.
Such a great distinction. Love it.
Yeah.
So in those first days when you were starting, I imagine that it took a lot of courage to be authentic. Were you afraid?
Yeah, I'm always afraid. I live afraid. I mean, I think that anyone who's ever gotten really real with some people will tell you that it's scary because a lot of times this magical thing happens where you like, so we have these like internal demons, right? Like all these secrets that we think are so dark and scary and like if anybody knew they wouldn't really love me or whatever. But what I found is when you get those demons out into the light, they're just like these little teddy bear, like they're not scary anymore. You know, you just get them out and there's like these little things that are so scary in the dark and not in the light. And then a bunch of other people say, me too. Me too. I thought I was alone. And we figure out that these things that we thought were so terrifying are actually totally universal. You know, like the most personal stuff is always the most universal. That's the secret that so many people never get to because we all stay on the surface with each other. We talk about like highlights in soccer practice, which is fascinating, but like that's why we're all lonely because all that stuff is different for all of us. But when you go 12 layers deeper to our joy and our pain and our loss and our love, that's the stuff that's all exactly the same.
Mm.
So if you keep going there over and over again, those are the people who end up being braver and cozy on this earth, because the courage for truth-telling, comes from the unshakable belief that we are all the same. That I might be a little woo-woo, but I'm not unique. You know, my darkest feelings other people have, and my greatest joys other people have. So, and then occasionally you say something, and this happens to me all the time, and people don't say me too. They go like this. And there's like an awkward silence. Okay, I mean, that's uncomfortable, that happens, but here's the thing, it hurts. When you're vulnerable and it's not received well, it hurts, but nothing hurts as much as not being known. Mm. So I will take that pain over the pain that I had when I was in addiction, which is the pain of hiding myself completely and never being known.
Yep. That's really good. So I want to deconstruct this just a little bit, because I think a lot of the people that are listening to this right now struggle with fear. I've found that to be universal too. I'm afraid all the time too. Every time I try something new, even starting this interview, you know, it's scary because it's, you know, I'm always thinking to myself, any success I've had in the past was a fluke, and I still have to create it.
Every day.
Yeah.
All the time. I tell people all day, every day, that God is with you, and all you have to do is show up, and God, and you will always be okay. And then every day I think the magic is over. I'm going to show up, and God is going to let me fall on my face, and this is it. It's done. It's done.
So what gets you past that? What gets you past that? Like, let's just say you're facing a scary thing, whatever the next big thing is for you, and you're way outside of your comfort zone, and you're feeling that moment of panic. How do you process that so you actually do what you need to do?
So, well, I have this quick little prayer that I say constantly, like I said right before I got on with you, and it goes like this. Okay, God, I showed up. Your turn. That's the whole thing. Like, I prepare like crazy. I work my butt off. I have a big sign up on my desk that says Faith and Sweat. I work my butt off, and then I show up. And at the moment that I show up, I let it all go. Like, I did my job. I prepared, and I'm here. So this is on you, God, if this doesn't go well, right? So that's how I do it. I just show up, and I don't know that, you know, Michael, that whole, like, next right thing, that's how I got sober. Just the next right thing. Just show up, be brave, be kind, rest, and try again. That's what I have listed. That's my whole life. Just show up. And I don't know, I mean, you know, God's never completely left me alone, and I just kind of expect that it'll continue.
That's
and
awesome.
Also, if it gets screwed up, who cares? Like, it's like part of my brand to be messy and mess up. Like, if I did everything perfectly, it would be totally off-brand. So I can't go wrong.
So you talked about treating everybody with respect, which I really admire and I really try to do, and a lot of times I'm successful and occasionally I'm not. Is that ever really hard for you when somebody's just blasting you or really critical?
Oh, gosh. I mean, Michael, I have been blogging for 8 years. I have never responded negatively or with any snark online ever, okay? And I get slammed.
Wow.
Never. I've kept my promise to myself. That's not to say that I don't speak that to my husband about these people in a certain way in the kitchen, but that's different, right? So when, you know, when you're on Facebook and like that little thing comes up and it says, you are now acting as monastery, like that's what it says to me. You are now acting as monastery. And that's my signal that, like, right now, you are to be your best and highest self. Mm. You know, this might not be who you are all day. When people ask me, are you that kind? Are you that? No. No. This is my best and highest self. This is the place where I practice love, where I practice kindness. And since I don't let myself off the hook, I get to see the power of it. I mean, Michael, the stories I have about people who have said things to me that are so hurtful, and I just remind myself, okay, everything is either love or a call for love. Everything is either love or a call for love. And so I just sit with the pain for a little while, and I go for a walk all the time. And then I come back and I try to respond with some grace or some love, whatever I can muster. and the magic that has happened over and over with that. I mean, we have won, and because I do that over and over again, my tribe at Monastery does that for me now with other people.
That's nice.
There's nobody we haven't won over yet. I'm telling you, they come looking for a fight, and we win them. We win them over with our ridiculous, relentless love. So, I don't know. I mean, sometimes I wish I could practice it more in my real life, but it works really well at Monastery.
Well, that's awesome. It's inspirational to me, too, because there are times, I mean, I have these conversations with my wife, Gail, all the time, you know, and I have gotten better about putting a pause, you know, between kind of the stimulus and me reacting, because usually when I react immediately, it's not a good thing. But there are kind of the conversations that I have online, and then the conversations that are in my head about what I'd really like to say. Yeah.
And those are fun. Those are fun. It's fun to think all day about what you would have said. I mean, it's so interesting. It's also because we're good with words, right? So when people say things to me, I'm like, oh, I could destroy you. Like, I have the best thing to say. And then to not say it?
Yeah.
Wow. Like, that's like a whole spiritual practice, don't you think? Like,
totally. Absolutely.
To know the thing that would, anyway, I don't know. I also keep these things, Michael. This is what I keep. You see this thing?
I do.
This is a troll, okay? I keep these things on my desk to remind myself that internet trolls, they're not so bad. It's just hard to be so small and have such challenging hair. So I just remind myself they just need some love.
You are so funny. Okay. I've got to get one of those.
I'll send you one. I have like 20.
Okay, great. I want to talk about inflection points. You know, I think in everybody's career and in everybody's influence and their increasing impact, there are sort of some inflection points where, for some inexplicable reason, things grow. You go to the next level. So you're writing this blog. What was kind of the next inflection point for you where something unexpected happened in terms of expanding your reach or increasing your impact?
Yeah, I know what, I know when you said that, I know exactly. I wrote this post, well, I don't know, my whole strategy is just do the next right thing. So I've never promoted Monastery anywhere. We don't advertise. All of it's been completely organic, right? My friend Amy, who's here and who now works with Monastery, said, you need to put share buttons on your blog. I didn't even know about that. So she changed it, and she put share buttons on my blog one day, and then a week later I wrote a post called Don't Carpe Diem that went viral. And then after that went viral, some of the older posts went viral, and then like a couple weeks later I had calls from agents and the book. I think a month after Don't Carpe Diem, I was in New York, and I was at a 15 house publishing auction, and I didn't even know what any of that was. So my sister just came with me, and we did our best.
That's hilarious. So all because you put share buttons and made it easy for people to share your content.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I don't know. I think it was a good lesson in, like, help me help you. Like, people want to help you. If they love you and they feel like you're serving them, they want to share your work. If your work is actually helping them through the day, they want to help other people by getting your work to them. So you got to make it easy.
Okay, so I've gotten two takeaways so far. One is tell the truth, and you'll connect with people because everybody's facing the same truth that you're facing at a deep level. And then make it easy to share your stuff.
Yeah. And serve, you know, like I get emails from people every day that are like, I just started a blog. How can I get more followers? Like, okay, well, if you have 3 followers, then love the bejesus out of those 3 followers. Like, if it's 3 o'clock and you're dragging and you're bored and you need a pick-me-up, then get on your computer and offer your 3 people a pick-me-up. Like, if you're watching the news and you're just despondent because of what's going on in the world and you feel hopeless, then get on the computer and offer your audience hope. Like, whatever you need in the moment of the day is what everybody needs. So you get online and you offer your people what it is that you need in that moment. That's what leadership is. It's offering what you need before you have it. And then there's this back and forth of this trust and this community. And then when you're serving, you know, I just see so many people using social media as like a way to document their like rise to success.
Yes.
Nobody wants to see that. That's depressing. fine. I'm relatively successful, and I don't even want to see anyone else's success. It makes me cranky. Like, you need to use it to encourage people. We're all in the trenches. We all have the same feelings. It's not a place to like brag. Like, if I'm doing something like amazingly shiny, I can almost guarantee you it won't be on social media. It's not relatable. It's not like, it doesn't help somebody who's in the trenches and just trying to get through the day. So I don't know. I mean, I just think if you want to, it's all upside down. It's all backwards. Like if you want to grow, you stay small and you speak to that one person who you can serve. Just keep serving. It's content.
I love this. I was talking to somebody the other day who was complaining about the fact that they only had about 1,000 people following their blog. And I thought to myself, first of all, if you could be in a room and talk to 1,000 people, I mean, that's huge. You know, to have influence on 1,000 people. I mean, there have been few speaking engagements that I've had where there were 1,000 people in the room. That's for starters. For me, when I started blogging in 2004, it took me 4 years before I got 1,000 readers. So people act like, you know, they can just start and have these huge audiences, and if they don't, they failed.
And it's crazy, right? It's like life. It's social media is just a reflection of life. Like if you do not serve well the people in front of you, then don't wonder why there's not more. You know, about 4 people, 5 people. I mean, when I had 20 people at Monastery, it was the exact same thing as it is now. I mean, I used to buy books and send them to them. Now I can't do that for our book clubs. You know, I ask publishers to send them to them, but it's the exact same thing, just on a bigger level. Wow. And sometimes when I freak out because there's so many people, I pretend that it's still 20 people. I pretend that nobody will see what I'm writing.
That's actually a very good hack. I do that too. I try to think of like one person that I'm writing to and have a conversation with them. Sometimes that one person I'm writing to is me. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm just kind of preaching to me. You know, what would I tell me if I were kind?
Right, because you're giving them what you need. That's what we writers do. Like, I'm always writing about the things I know nothing about. Like, I desperately need to know more about this or that. I'm writing about it. Just think about what you need and write it. I think so often people think, you know, they're struggling in their life or they're feeling full and amazing, and then they get on social media and they're like, what should I write about? And they write about something totally different. Like, no. Just let your heart speak to the hearts of the people sitting in their homes. You're not speaking to a computer. You're speaking to people.
How has the book changed things for you? So what has that done for you? Because I know there are a lot of people that are listening to us that have thought about writing a book, and that sounds like an even scarier thing because it sounds so daunting. Was it hard for you to write it to begin with?
My first book, well, I'm writing a book right now that was so hard for me that I haven't even gotten to the point where I can talk about it yet. Like, it was brutal and horrible, and I mean, I think the book is going to be good, but the process was brutal. Yeah. The Carry On Warrior was a little bit easier for me because it was just, it's essays. You know, it's a group of essays, which at the time wasn't hard for me to do. This next book is like a narrative, and the book, I mean, I think it was a success. It hasn't changed things. I mean, now they get to say New York Times best-selling author before I go on stage. My dad says it a lot. My daughter, when Carry On Warrior hit number 3 on the New York Times bestseller list, my daughter's teacher called me and she said, Tish just stood up and announced that her mom was number 3 at selling the New York Times. So no one in my family really knows what I do. I would honestly, I mean, the nonprofit has changed my life exponentially. The community at Monastery has changed my life completely. The book being on the New York Times list hasn't, I don't know what it's changed.
Really? You don't think it's given you more authority, or people listen to you now in a way that they didn't before? Or do you think that the truth-telling is really the thing that opens all that up?
I mean, Michael, when I go on speaking engagements, my agent has this list of things they're supposed to read, and I always ask them not to. I just feel like all that list of things, it's just like this, it's just fear. It's like, I deserve to be here. Please say all the reasons I deserve to be here. Like, I'd rather just earn it. by being honest. Every time I stand up on a stage, it's a new experience, and I don't know. The whole list of things feels like a barrier.
Yeah.
Me, a fancy barrier between me and the people in the audience. So I usually just ask them not to say it.
That's so countercultural.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. If you were advising somebody who's thinking about starting a blog, or who is thinking about, they just long to have more influence, more impact. They want to get to their end of their life and know that their life mattered. Mm-hmm. What would your advice be? If you were sitting down having coffee with those people, what would you say?
Well, right now is an interesting time to want to get into like blogging or social media, or, to have a voice is one thing, to write. It used to be that you could just be a writer. Now you kind of need to have a social media community, I think. I'll tell you this. I'll tell you something I've noticed recently, and that is to be a social media person or be a blogger, you have to be a leader, right? Mm-hmm. To be a leader, you kind of have to have a zone, right? So I would say my zone is faith, art, mental health. I've noticed recently that a lot of big-time social media leaders that I know personally and that I know feel passionately about certain things are not speaking up about them publicly. And that's interesting to me. So I had a conversation with one of my friends recently who's in that category, and I said, what's going on? Why aren't you talking about this thing that we've been talking about? And she said, I can't. I've got these sponsors. I've got this. I've got, I've got these people who are paying me I can't make anybody mad. I'm trying to. And so, Michael, I thought back to, why am I able to do this? So I think it goes back to a decision I made 6 years ago when I got my first book deal. So I used to be a teacher. When I got my first big book deal, I told Craig, we're not going to change anything in our life. Like, I'm going to live exactly like I lived when I was a teacher. So, because I knew in my heart, so even now, 6 years later, I speak a lot. I make a lot more than I did as a teacher. I've had 2 big book deals. I drive the same van, the same gross minivan that I did back then. I have the same mortgage. I have some nicer T-shirts maybe, but that decision that I made not to change my lifestyle means that nobody's the boss of me. I don't have any sponsors. Like, I don't make any money off my blog. I can say whatever the heck I want whenever I need to, which is almost becoming a dying thing in blogging, because it feels like, I've never done a sponsored post. I don't have authenticity and truthfulness and rawness is like the only thing that will get people's attention now, because things are so controlled. So I don't know. I think these decisions we make in our personal life, and Amy and I have a team of Amy and my sister who both work full-time for Monastery, and when they joined me, I said, here's the deal. I can offer you this amazing job where you're going to be able to do creative things, and you're going to be able to speak to the world, and you are going to be able to serve women and children, and the other thing I can offer you is 0 job security, because it could all be over tomorrow. Like, I might say something, and it'll all shut down. And they know that, and I'll send them posts, and they'll say, are you sure you want to say this? And I'll say, post it now. So I don't know. It just offers me this freedom to know that if it all ends tomorrow, like if it gets too hard for my family, if I just feel very, very free to say whatever God tells me that, or whatever I decide needs to be said that day. So my advice would be, just don't get yourself in a situation where you are trapped, right? Where if you really want to get into this because you have something to say, then make sure you make decisions that keep you free to say what it is you want to say.
Wow. That's a huge takeaway. Yeah. Very powerful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Was there something else you were going to say? Did I cut you off?
No, I think that's it. As usual, I've probably already said too much.
No, it's fantastic. What is, as you look into the future, what's next for you? What are you excited about that has to do with, I don't know, having more impact through Monastery or whatever it is? What's next?
Yeah, well,
Book.
just this morning, Amy's over. We're working on our next Love Flash Mob, which will be next month. So we do these things called Love Flash Mobs every month at Monastery. We just pick a cause or a person or a family that needs a lot of help, and we write their story, and then we show them to Monastery, and then we raise money for them. So we do one every few months, and the rule is that nobody's allowed to donate more than $25 to this cause or this person. And usually, I mean, the last one we raised $180,000 in like 7 hours, and then it was like $300,000 in 12 hours, and nobody's allowed to donate more than $25. Just these, I feel like that's what happens when you build trust with people.
Yes.
Like I work so hard to build trust with people, and then we do this, and they trust, you know, and they give, and it like creates this amazing miracle for somebody out there. So I'm excited. That's what I'm excited about. We're working on it this morning, and we're going to launch it next month, and I can't wait.
Now,
and my book. And my book. I'm excited about my book.
Could you tell us any more about your book?
Yeah, it's a book about my marriage. My marriage just sort of imploded a couple years ago, and it was so hard and so terrible, and we worked so hard to get back to baseline, and we're there now, and it's just about all the brutal, beautiful magic that happened after that. So that's why it was so hard, because I think I was, you know, like as a writer, you live something traumatic.
Yes.
But then you don't really, you just kind of go on to the next thing. You just survive it. But then as a writer, you have to go back to it and like
relive it.
It all again and like figure out what it all meant, and I'm like sweating thinking about it because it was just really, really hard. But but I made it through. And
When does it come out? When does it come out?
Next fall, fall 2016.
Fantastic. Well, I can't wait to read it.
Thank
Glennon, you have been so generous with your time. I just love talking to you. It seems like the time goes so fast.
I agree.
But for those of you who are watching today, I really want to encourage you to go to Monastery, subscribe, read Glennon's stuff. I think it'll really give you kind of a new paradigm for your own work in terms of being authentic with yourself and being authentic with your audience. And I also want to challenge you. There's probably somebody that you're thinking of right now that needs to watch this interview or needs to be part of the summit. So there's some share buttons on this page. Glennon was talking about that earlier. So please share it with the world. We want everyone to experience this. Glennon, thank you again. This has been extraordinary. I'm so grateful for your time.
Thank you, Michael. I love you guys so much. You do such good work. Keep inviting me back. I'll show up.
Absolutely. We will. Thanks again.
Thank you. Bye.
Welcome to the Influence and Impact Summit presented by Platform University.
Know that your story matters and that you have a message that the world needs to hear.
You can get your message to the end user now so much easier.
It can't just be about you. Influence is about others.
And again, it all goes down to serving your audience and making a true, real connection with them.